Maybe one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. Zero. It's just gonna blow up the whole scenario. The standards are pretty low. There's a happy ending.
We wanted to give you a little glimpse into more of the details of our Italian life. So in Italy, you really don't know what's going to happen, or maybe it's just moving to a new country in general. You can only go one step at a time. So this is a little bit of a lengthy video, but if you're curious about the process of getting the reptiles from California to Italy and not knowing what to expect every step of the way, then play the video.
There's a happy ending. We were reunited with our animals and they are safe and sound in Italy. But to get them here and all the things that we had to do and all the logistics and all the paperwork was completely insane. I probably shouldn't have done it, but then, you're in the middle of it and you got to do it. And then I just felt like, well, I have to win. I have to win. I have to be able to do it because why can't I do it? This is a little bit of the details of how we got them, and you can just imagine what the day was like as you play and listen to all the little steps along the way.
So to begin with the process of shipping the reptiles to Italy, what are your main feelings about the project?
It was all-encompassing. It was another, not like a part-time job, but like a side hustle. At the same time, maybe one of the greatest accomplishments of my life.
When did this process begin?
The process began as soon as we left. Moved here in mid-December. We were trying to bring everybody, our dog and the snake and the 2 lizards. And but the snake needed a CITES permit or a CITES permit, CITES. I'm not sure what the acronym is. So the CITES permit or the CITES permit can potentially take up to 90 days to receive. So I don't remember exactly what this permit is for, but it can take up to 90 days. So when we were going through the process of getting the reptiles here, we were clearly going to miss that window. So then the reptiles had to be babysat, and the permit worked on while we were living here. And then when we got back in April, then we could move forward to like the immediate shipping process. I was in contact with the shipping company of Eco since I started talking to them again sometime in January, and then try to really give them a sense of urgency, probably end of January to beginning of February, that we need to get on with this permit so that way we could get it in time. Because I just started doing math, 90 days from the beginning of February was basically when we were coming back to Italy from the States. So I was even worried that we wouldn't even get it in time before us to leave.
How many emails do you think you have with Avico?
It's probably triple digits, even one-liners, but yeah, if it's not different email strings, but it's probably triple digits, yeah.
How many companies did you contact before you settled on this one?
I think 3 or 4, maybe 5. I don't really remember. There was one, I don't think were very helpful. There was a company out of New York that was more than willing to help me, but the shipping cost alone was going to be like $7,500. That doesn't include permit fees, and to ship the reptiles through Avico was a fraction of that.
How many people do you think ship their pet reptiles to other countries?
0. Oh, should I expand? Oh, because it is way too much work, way too expensive, and just a nightmare, but I did it. So it just shows you, if you really put your mind to something, you can do whatever you want.
So when we arrived in California and then we received the permit, or we had already received the permit, the CITES permit for the reptiles, what was the next step in the process?
When we arrived back in California, the next step in the process was to get in contact with the shipping company. They wanted, beforehand, we needed to coordinate, when our flight was so they could buy tickets for the reptiles. Well, they don't get tickets. They essentially book a slot in the cargo for the package. When we needed to get back, I needed to order shipping supplies for the reptiles and then work on the USDA health permit, which you can only get, you can only book the appointment with the vet 10 days before you arrive in whatever country you're going to. And then they ship it to the USDA, and you have to pray that the USDA ships it back within a timely manner so you can get it so they can get on the plane.
Could you explain to me your panic attack that day when Avico gave us the name of the vets that could do the USDA, but then they in fact could not?
So the USDA health permit, to get one for a dog or a cat is very simple, and most vets will do it. Now, Avico had told me that there was a doctor in Calabasas who they use all the time, and we could get one from him. So I did procrastinate a little bit on the health permit and setting up the appointment, but it's really just a basic check. They're just making sure the animals are healthy or they're, alive and not, malnourished or anything, and then that's it. So I called, or I think I texted, maybe went through the website for this vet in Calabasas, and I got a response, we don't do that. So then I started making phone calls because I was in a time crunch. I needed this health permit within the next couple of days in order to get it back so we could leave. And I just started calling, emailing, messaging, texting, any vet I could come up with and asking questions in the greater Los Angeles area. And people would give me, try this vet. I said, I already called them. They said no. So eventually what I should have done was ask the shipping company because they know who to talk to, but I didn't. I just did it on my own and eventually found a vet that's near the airport, but in Inglewood.
But how many vets did you contact?
I probably contacted over a dozen. I would say 12 to 15. So it took me like 2 hours. When you're doing a process this complicated and there's a lot of things that are getting down to the wire, you're always half waiting for something to happen, and then it's just going to blow up the whole scenario.
So I have another question for you. Have you ever packaged reptiles before?
No, I have never packaged reptiles before. So I ordered the largest packing box from a reptile shipping company. I don't remember the exact dimensions, but it was good size. And it comes with styrofoam inserts, so it's fully insulated, and you buy, essentially they're those instant hand warmers, but they last 60 hours in order to keep some heat in the box for the reptiles. Another thing you need for the reptiles is they also need to go in essentially pillowcases, or you can, and tied off, but the shipping company also sells canvas bags that has a tie already to it, and they're not terribly expensive, nor are the hand warmers expensive, but they only come in packs of 5 at the lowest because nobody ships like 3 reptiles. They ship many. So I got 5 bags even though I only needed 3, and 5 hand warmers even though I only needed 1. But they're only I think the hand warmers maybe $8 and the bags were $10 or $12. It wasn't a big expense.
Could you tell me about how the package was constructed on the inside? How you constructed the package?
So when I had spoken to somebody at Avico, they said, when it was getting down to the wire, I said, you probably actually want to send 2 packages, the snake in one and the reptiles in another, or the snake in one and the lizards in another. And so then the next logical question is that more money? Yes, then absolutely not. We're not spending more money on this because it was already expensive. So what I did was I created little compartments within the box for everybody. So the snake, I poked holes in everything so there was always air, little holes with a pencil. The snake was in a box within the box. So the snake got her own box. Snake I put in the bag, and within the box we used packing paper for everybody as bedding. So then she got put in there, and lots of shipping tape to make sure that even if the bag failed, if the tie on the bag failed, she wouldn't escape. Then I essentially made a wall down the middle of the box, or the rest of the box, for the lizards. And then they also went in a bag on top of packing paper. Now I packaged up everybody perfectly, but then when we got to the airport and had to do the fish and wildlife inspection with that officer, he had to open all of the packages, open all of the bags so that he could see everything. So then we had to repackage it, which we did, but it probably wasn't quite as secure as I did it because we were just doing it on the spot. But thankfully we had tape and we were able to get it done.
I was glad that Fish and Wildlife were there to inspect your packaging because I wasn't really sure, you being a novice reptile shipper, if it was going to be up to the standards required.
Well, I think the standards are pretty low. If he had said no, though, then they wouldn't go because he's the final say for them to get on the plane. I did ask him if he ever rejects people, and he said yes. If the animals don't look healthy or if the packaging just is... He said he had some fish coming through and everything was looking really dingy and dirty, so he had to say no to those people. But generally, he's saying yes. And he didn't want his picture taken or video of him because I wanted to video the process, and he said no, he doesn't like videos of him. But other than that, he was very nice and talkative. I can't remember what branch of the military he was in. I want to say Navy, and he was stationed in Sicily for a couple of years, so he has ties to Italy.
Once we got the reptiles on the plane and we arrived in Rome, could you explain what it took to then get to the location that the reptiles were waiting for us in?
Well, I'll back up. The Avico, the shipping company, said to just book whatever plane flight and they would get the reptiles on the same flight as us because most airlines will carry some cargo. We chose Norse Airlines, I think because they were cheaper. I booked the tickets. And they don't carry packages, or they wouldn't take this package. And so the reptiles were actually booked on a flight on an Italian Airways or ITA flight 45 minutes after we departed. So obviously, if their flight got delayed or it got canceled, we'd never know because we were already gone. So when we arrived, we were told I was told to, just go to the counter. We waited for the baggage to come through from the ITA flight. So we looked at the carousel and the oversized baggage, but there was nothing. It never came out. And logically, it makes sense because it's not luggage, it's cargo. So that goes to a separate place. But I had to talk to many people at the airport, walk all around, and eventually I went to the Lost and Found, of all places. And that woman was helpful. She commandeered a couple of police officers who then also talked to somebody who worked at the airport. Another police officer came, and they all came together. And the final answer was go to a magical, mystical place called Cargo City. That is the actual name in Fiumicino Airport. It's on the other side, and that's not a translation. It's called Cargo City, and that's where all the packages, all the freight goes. And but we would probably waited 2 hours, I would say. 3 hours, I stand corrected, to get that answer.
Well, I'm sorry. It was maybe 2 hours to get that answer, but then we had to go pick up the rental car because we realized we needed it to get to Cargo City.
We didn't realize that you have a window with the rental cars because we've always been on time. And we missed our 2 hour window, so our rental car was given away to somebody else. We had rented a big van for the day to get us the 3 hours from Rome back to Tuscany. And they had given that away, so we were thankfully able to find 2 small SUVs, but that just meant that we each had to drive, which we were a little concerned about because we were both tired and now one couldn't hit the other to keep us awake while we were driving.
Yes, so we finally got 2 cars, loaded up our 13 or 14 bags between the 2. I think it was 13 bags plus your golf bag, I think is what it was.
Why do you say it like that?
I very much dislike traveling with the golf bag. It is cumbersome and
I've only done it once.
annoying.
No,
No,
twice.
we've done it twice.
We went to Hawaii.
We've Oh, well then that's 3 times then. That's we brought it here.
Oh, we brought it here.
back.
Yes. Yes.
So once we got to Cargo City, could you give us a taste of what it was like?
So at Cargo City, if you can think of it, Cargo City.
Wait a minute. Let's back up. So we knew that, you can talk about this. We knew coming in to shipping the reptiles that we could really only fully figure out what was on the US side of things. And there was this question mark in our heads on if they would release the reptiles to us once we arrived in Italy, because it can be very challenging to figure out that side of things. So we prayed an awful lot. That was our biggest prayer, was that they would be released to us once we arrived. So could you please then tell us the process of what it took for you to receive the reptiles?
So the same 2 permits that I got, the health certificate and the CITES permit, I needed to get an Italian version as well beforehand. And so I had neither. Cargo City, it's set up, it's a big gated thing. Essentially, if you're the front of it, there's a small building, but it's a large building. And that's where the entrance is, and also where customs is, all the customs offices and officers. Then there's about 100 yards of space, let's say. And then, I don't know, 600 or 800 yards of just shipping area and offices that go above it. So the trucks would come under the offices, and then the offices are on top. So when I arrived, the person at the entrance said, oh, you got to go to this building. So I walked over there, not giving very clear directions. And I found my way to the right person eventually. And he said, oh, well, you need a health certificate and a permit. You got to go to customs. Okay. So I go to customs. At least I figured out that the reptiles were there. So I was 99% sure the reptiles were there, because you're just never 100% sure until you get the package. I go to customs and they ask me, do you have these 2 documents? I say no. And then very quickly I'm standing in a hallway and about 6 customs people surround me, and they're all talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do. The long and short of it is, it took about not quite 5 hours to get all the paperwork done. So what I'm grateful for is that we were able to get it done. And you would say we had favor in all of it, which we did, because we were able to get it done and got everybody back, and we stayed awake, and the reptiles are alive. But essentially what I did was I went from customs to those office buildings, and then I would go back to customs and get something else and go back here, and then I would go different offices. I had to go to the reptile broker who I didn't want to use coming into Italy, that the shipping company recommended, or one of them, because it was too expensive. I found there is a broker in this shipping place, and they were able to call a vet and get a health certificate for me, and I was able to get this CITES permit by going to different offices between the 2 places. And so I just walked back and forth. It was like a Disneyland day of walking. And after 5 hours, I was able to get all the documentation that I needed, and they took pity on me, I guess, and they were able to help me, and we got the reptiles.